I'm going to show you the base for some modular origami, which is very fairly versatile, and you can also add different styles to each other rather than just the same exact module to one. And there's many variations of this, and you can probably find a few on your own without my help. So I'll show you the base. First, do what is fairly typical. We're going to fold it diagonally in half, both ways, and then horizontally in half, both ways. Okay. Oh, excuse me. See, I'm used to just doing the normal thing for Froebel, or Froebel, I don't know how you say it. So in order to make it into a module, put all four corners to the center. Once you do this, you pretty much just flip it over and pretend this is a normal origami piece of paper, and you're going to make something of Froebel. So once again, you're going to do kind of what we did before, like this. Just fold towards the center. You don't have to let these corners stick out if you want to keep them under, but for some reason I just like to do those folds separately to make sure they're, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit neurotic or something, but I like to just do it like this. And then I like to put these two behind here. Now, you're going to find out later that these little corners become the tabs or flaps, which will go into a pocket. And it's not always, you know, you're not always going to need to do what I'm doing right now, where I'm putting them under. These are going to become, excuse me, they can become both flaps or pockets, depending on your choice, which makes it very flexible for you to do kind of whatever you want. It can become very useful. But I usually put two of them behind like this, because I sort of use the Shinobi model when I'm connecting these, and I like to have like two flaps on opposite ends and two pockets on the other opposite ends. So this is how I typically do it. But sometimes I leave all the flaps out and I connect it to a module that's just four pockets. You can do that. I could turn every one of these into a pocket if I want to. You'll see what I mean later on. All right, and like you've seen me do before, I'm going to fold along here and along here. With the colors, it's much clearer. It's much easier to see. All right, like that. And what's interesting about this is I basically done almost nothing on my own here. It's all just Okay, so fold along here, and then fold along this one, and then turn it this way. And because this is thicker than a normal one, because I already tucked in the four corners and all that, and it's kind of doubling up the paper, I advise you to take your corners and just get them nice and clean and ready so they don't have problems folding later on. Just real fast. And then you're going to do what you've seen me do many times. I like to keep these out when I do it, but you're going to put this together like that. Okay? And there you go. And once again, you can fold these like this. If you want to make them pockets, you would just tuck this under here. If you want them as flaps, you leave them out, which is what I'm going to do. Most 90% of the time, this is how I do it. Unless I'm making something very, unusual and I, for some reason, would need it. Okay, and then you put it back here. Fold these two down like this. Fold these two down like this. And then, this is where you can begin. You can make anything that you're used to making, and if you look back here, you can see kind of how this is going to work. These will find another piece like this, and they'll go into this pocket right here. And later on, many of the pieces kind of lock it so it's more secure. There is maybe one or two I can think of that don't lock it. And it all depends on how you make it too. For things like cubes, you don't really need it to lock because it holds itself together very well. But if you were going to make a Shinobi, I think it's advisable to, Shinobi, like a 30-piece Shinobi. I forget what that's called, a dodecahedron or something. Then you definitely, it's better to use one that locks. All right. So this is yet even another variation. This might be the most famous display of, a Froebel model, like his most common one. And it won't look quite as nice actually in module form because you aren't going to see the white, which is usually what makes it so nice, seeing the other color contrast. And yet it still looks nice, despite of that. It's worth, let's put it this way, it's worth doing. Okay, so we did that, and now I'm going to open them each one up. And there you go. And, you know, I'm still quite, I just love the look of this. And even though if you were to make a cube, you definitely don't need the locking mechanism in the center. It holds itself together, but if you were going to make something else, you might need it. But I also, in recent years, realized I quite like the way it looks even when it comes out. So let me show you one version of doing that. It's pretty obvious. You just, everything that looks like it can be folded back, I fold back, starting with this part. You realize that out of all these different ways of doing this, they all have their own limitations and advantages. So, but if you fold all these, like if you, for this particular one, if you fold all these flaps out, it actually, I find it's a pretty nice one to use. And it looks so much different than if when all the flaps were still pointed inward. And after you do this, it looks like a completely different model. So you might not even realize that the two are connected. Okay, so there we go. Put that like that. This looks almost, I don't know, alien-like or something. Anyway, that's one version of doing it, and it will lock because of these 4 things inside. Just one more variation.